Why was the Vietnam War unpopular? If you're curious about why the Vietnam War was so unpopular, you're about to uncover some key reasons that made this conflict one of the most divisive in American history. First, let's talk about the media's role. Nightly television broadcasts showed the war's brutality, which turned many Americans against the war. Seeing the harsh realities of combat and the suffering of both soldiers and civilians right in their living rooms made people question the war's purpose and morality. Another significant factor was the anti-war protests. By 1967, protests had grown significantly, with thousands of demonstrators marching against the war outside the White House and on college campuses. These protests were not just small gatherings. They were large-scale events that drew national attention. For example, in October 1967, 100,000 people gathered in Washington, D.C. to protest the war. The draft system also played a major role in the war's unpopularity. Many young men were drafted to serve in Vietnam, and this led to widespread discontent. About 500,000 American men, known as draft dodgers, fled the country to avoid serving, with many crossing the border into Canada. The draft was seen as unfair, especially since there were exemptions that favored certain groups, leading to more protests and resentment. The war's impact on American society was profound. It polarized the country, creating deep divisions between those who supported the war and those who opposed it. The war's cost was not just financial. It also affected President Johnson's domestic agenda and influenced U.S. foreign policy for years to come. Public opinion shifted dramatically over time. By January 1969, a majority of Americans believed that the war was a mistake. This negative view only intensified in the following years, with 71% of Americans labeling U.S. involvement in Vietnam a mistake by 1995. The My Lai Massacre in March 1968, where U.S. soldiers killed over 400 unarmed Vietnamese civilians, further eroded public support. Such atrocities, combined with the ongoing casualties and lack of clear victories, made the war increasingly unpopular. The psychological effects on soldiers also became a public concern. Films and personal accounts revealed the emotional toll of the war on soldiers, showing how they struggled with the moral ambiguities of combat and the constant fear of death. This human side of the war made it harder for Americans to support the conflict. In summary, the Vietnam War was unpopular due to a combination of factors: the graphic media coverage, widespread anti-war protests, the contentious draft system, the war's polarizing effect on society, shifting public opinion, and the atrocities committed during the conflict. These elements collectively contributed to the war's enduring unpopularity.